Let's begin the new book of Bamidbar, the fourth of the fifth Sfarim. And when we began this round of reading the Torah, we talked about how there's the first layer of reading, and then there's the depth of what it is, or the black ink on white parchment, and then, as the Midrash says, the black fire on white fire, meaning that there's an inner core, a warmth, a depth to everything that we learn and teach. And so the Torah itself has layers and layers and depth and deeper meaning. So we come to this parsha, and in this parsha, next parsha, a lot of it seems pretty dull. It's numbers, it's counting. It's just like, okay, this tribe had this amount of people, and this tribe had this amount of people of warring age, right? From the men from the age of 20 to the age of 60, fantastic, right? So this is great. And let's, I'm with a bated breath, we're going to wait for the next tribe and what they have. It's like, and who had a larger tribe? Oh my goodness, look at the numbers there, right? And then we finally finish, we're like, oh, and we didn't count Levi, and Levi's counted in a different way. So what's going on? So let's quickly go through just an overview of what parts are in the Parsha, and then hopefully we can look at it a little bit and see some of the meaning of this entire book, Bamidbar, and the Parsha itself. So it begins with the appointment of the obligation or the commandment to count, the appointment of the tribal leaders for each one of the tribes. And then it goes through the count of all of the tribes, how many there were in them, totaling the 603,550 men from the ages of 20 and upward that can go to battle, right? And the Levim were not counted. And then we count the designate the Levim about their position, and then it goes through the encampment and the who was on east, west, south, and north, and the three tribes on each side who were near each other, and the flags that they each had, and then it counts the Levim and their replacement of the firstborn, and so it counts the firstborn and the exchange of the Levim for the firstborn, gives all of the Levim their jobs in the Mishkan, and what they would do in the setting up or tearing down of the Mishkan itself. That's essentially the parsha of the week. So seems pretty if we would, uninspiring, right? It would be great to have a much more inspiring parsha right before Shavuos, right? Like we're gonna, just a couple of days before Shavuos, let's get the Torah, let's make this exciting, and it's a bunch of numbers. So something we talked about at the first count, I want to talk about it a little bit, but a little bit more in depth over here in understanding the count and its meaning. So the parsha begins, "Vaydaber Hashem al Moshe b'midbar Sinai." So at the Midbar Sinai, at the mountain, at the temple, b'Ohel Moed, b'echad hachodesh hasheni b'shana hashenis, in the first of the second month of the second year. So they're now at the mountain for about a year, just shy of a year, and that's right, because at the first day of the third month, they made it to the mountain, and this is the first day of the second month of the second year, so it's 11 months after being at the mountain, they're going to be counted. Su'u, lift up, es rosh kol adas b'nei Yisrael. Lift up the head of all of the community of Bnei Yisrael. So that's lift the head, meaning to count. L'mishpachotam, to their families. L'beis avosam, to their paternal household. B'mispar shemos, in the count of their names, kol zachar legugel osam, every male by head, from miben etzem shana v'mala, from the age of 20 and on, kol yotzitzav, anybody that can go into battle by Yisrael, tifkedu osam, you shall, will translate as you shall count them, litziv osam, according to their battalions or to their multitudes, atav Aaron, you and Aaron. Okay, so this is the commandment to count. I want to notice that it starts off with the entirety of Am Yisrael. Then it says to their families, so breaking it down to a subcategory. To the paternal household, smaller category. To the count of their names. All right, so each individual. And then how is this count to be done? All right, so how are they doing the count? It says legulgalosam, to their heads, which we already know from several weeks ago, Parshat Kitisa, at the end of Shemos, way back, right? At the end, towards the end of Shemos, that it says 1/2 coin per head, right? So the count of per head is 1/2 coin per head, as Rashi says over here, according to the shekel, by the 1/2 shekel per head. So I can pose this as a question, right? There is nothing more personal, more unique, more individual than counting each person b'mispar shemos, at the count of their names. And there's nothing less personal and less distinct and meaningful than counting each person by head count, by a coin per head count. So what's going on here? It starts off with raise up the head, meaning the head count of the entire Adas Yisrael, and then it takes it down more and more unique to the family, to the paternal household, to the count of each name, and then to a head count. Right? So what's going on? So in the next verse, in 3, where it talks about the age and the purpose, this is a count for the military. And just an aside, Rashi here points out, this is not the first time they're being counted. Why are they counting them again? And so Rashi says that from the Midrash, that they're counted constantly being counted out of chiba, out of love and lefanav, before Hashem. Monas and Bechal Shai counts them all the time. So what does it mean, love before him? So we're going to have to address that. Lefanav, in front of Hashem. Hashem has this love for them and doesn't know the count. No, it's more than that, obviously. But first, let's address this particular count. It says, according to the battle. But as we pointed out last time, the count over here also says tifkedu in the 3rd verse. And pakad, tifkedu, does not mean to count. The verse beforehand says mispar, that means to count. By the number, mispar is a number, by the counting, by the number. So that's really mispar shemos, the number, the count of the days, of the names. Tifkod, pikadon, really means something else. And the word, and Ramban points it out over here, we talked about it back then as well, that pikadon is something that you guard, is a deposit, is a pikadon. Collateral is a pikadon. A tafkid is a purpose, a designation. So the word tifkedu means to individually give each person their purpose, their designation, their place within the whole, within the collective. That's what a tafkid means. Tifkadu means to see a person within their role within the whole. So taking it back to the previous verse, we have the count of the names, which is the name is very personal, but the count is just a number. So what's going on? So if I were to ask, and I think that, this is the way we would definitely, we typically see it, is, if I'm counting a person as a part of a collective, so that's very impersonal. That means that gives them no identity. But when I count someone as an individual and I give them a place and a purpose, that is very personal, and that is more personal. However, there's another way to think of this. When is an individual an individual? So you may think an individual is, the most free, the most individual, most unique, when they can just do whatever they want. They have no limitations to who they are. In Maharal's terms, this is the free-flowing idea, like just the concept. Now, a concept or concepts are beautiful because they have so much opportunity. And as soon as we start to concretize it, it loses that. So when an individual has no boundaries, just be who you are, just do what you do, they actually lose themselves because they have no place to put that concept. It's just a concept. Imagine you were given a job and you were hired. And so you come in the first day and say, okay, so what am I needed for? And they say, just whatever you want. Just whatever you want. Well, yeah, but in the office and wherever, just go ahead. Do your thing. You're at a total loss. You have all the opportunity, and that's not good, because you have no place within the structure of that organization, within the structure of that work. You would actually feel the least appreciated, the least needed, the least meaningful, because you have no place that's yours. You're a nobody because you can just be anybody or anything. So you have nothing. So in order to have the most meaning, those concepts of possibility within a person have to be concretized to a framework. But that framework has to be within the collective, within the central goal of everything else. Otherwise, it's a complete loss. Otherwise, there's nothing there. So when we think of the individual is very important. But that individual is important in as much as ultimately goes back to that collective, to the place of equality where everybody's in it for the same purpose, for the same goal, for the same place. If everybody is focused on the same direction. And that has to be and in that place, everybody's equal. So the Torah begins with count the people. Who? Kol adas b'nei Yisrael. The entirety of the community of b'nei Yisrael. Everybody. Everybody has a role within that structure, within the collective, within the the nation. Everybody's a part of that. However, that must be broken down into divisions and groups and individuals, because they have to have a particular role they play. If there is no role, if there is no in individual space, then it's a total. Then you're just a loss. Then you don't really matter. So it has to be l'mishpachosa, to the particular mishpacha, to their family, to that structure of what they bring to this. L'beis avosam. Within that structure, there's also the paternal household, b'misbar shemos, and then the count of names. Names give each individual person their place. Shem is their sham, where they are, who they are, what their place is within the larger structure. So you have individuals that are unique, and they will bring specific talents, and they have to be given that talent, and they have to be counted for the talent and for the ideas and for the personalities that they bring to the entirety. And then they can bring it back to their paternal household. In Torah, in halacha, the maternal line is the line that gives one their connection to Am Yisrael, to the within Bnei Yisrael. And this is because whereas a male covenant has to be done externally and after they are born, for a female it is internal, and they are born with that covenant, born in the covenant. And so the bris, the covenant that a female has, is within the structure of who they are. It's internal, innate, and therefore that the Jewish line passes from there. Whereas for a male, it's something that has to be given later, and so it's not innate in their birth. Be that as it may, that's the maternal line to be a part of Am Yisrael. But the particular tribe or the particular designation within Am Yisrael, that's the paternal line. The idea is that yichus, right? In Yiddish, yichus is like you have you've got some someone in your line that's been a great personality, and that's nice. But it means nothing if you're not holding on to that, right? It only means something in as much as you now have a tradition. You now have an inborn memory, if you would, of that which is the original purpose of this. So we have Abraham, we have Yitzchak, we have Yaakov. We are the descendants of Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. We have Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, and Leah. The pasuk says, "Look at the mountains and and your rock." The mountains being Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. The rock being Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, Leah. We're the foundations upon which this structure is built. So we have a tradition. We have something that we inherit as the structure or the material, if you would, that we utilize to bring our concept to. So just like an artist has a concept, the concept can be anything until they attach it to the material. And the material is blank and meaningless until there's something added to it. That's the individual's connection to the nation, to the past. The past is that material upon which their personality and their direction and their good deeds that they're going to do becomes takes shape on that. So the shemos is who they are, but then they attach it to beis avosam, to the paternal household. And that comes within a tribe, in mishpacha. Each tribe had its own purpose, its own qualities, if you would. Yaakov takes his 12 sons around him and he says, this is your attribute, and this is your attribute, and here's the weakness, and here's the strength, and here's how you're going to build it. Because if we are going to know who we are, we have to know our character traits, our positives, our things that we need to work on, and then we can become the person that we can become. But it can't be each person for themselves. You can't have just the count of the number of this is your name, this is who you are, this is what you are. And then the rest of it is just, well, each to their own, go do your thing. If individuality is so great that you could just do whatever you want, then you have no structure. It's like coming into work and you have no framework of what it is you need to do. Go ahead, do whatever you want, right? You need to have a direction. You need to have a purpose. You need to have a place that it goes back to where it's all back to that same core. And so after it says, count the entirety of Am Yisrael. Okay, each tribe. Okay, each paternal household. All right, each name. Then it says, we're going to take a back legilgolas, back to a coin per person, a half shekel per person, per head count, right? And we asked, like, that's the complete opposite of the individuality that we're looking for, the complete opposite of the shemos, each person, each household, each tribe. Yeah, because it's only it's only as valuable as ultimately it goes back to the same source. It goes back to the same common goal, the common space. So you may think, and this is what I think we typically think, the individual count, the specific personality count, now that's a higher level than the generic count for everybody in the half shekel. But actually, the mystical teachings say it's the other way around. When is your individuality of value? When you utilize it for the strength of that common good. If your individuality makes you a complete loner, a unique person out on your own, you do your thing contrary and without any collaboration or connection to everyone else, what ends up happening is that you don't even count. It's the person who comes into work and has no structure whatsoever. They're not doing anything for that organization, for that purpose. So the individual and the uniqueness of the individual is only as good as it does, as it relates to the Kol Adas B'nai Yisrael, to the entirety of the nation. On the count where it counts to the core, where ultimately within the organization, you may be doing A, and you may be doing B, and you may be doing C, but it's all for that one. It's all that same structure. And in that, everybody's an equal. That's a higher, deeper level. At its core, at the base. And I'm pointing upward because to us, the base is in heaven, not base like train. At the baseline, at the most high point of connection, everybody is an equal connection to everyone else. But as it comes down into manifestations of the physical world, in that, each person's unique, in as much as they use that uniqueness for that core, for that common goal, for that place in Torah and connection to Hashem. And so the structure of this pasuk is lift up the head of what? Of the entirety of the nation, of Kol Adas B'nai Yisrael, of that core high connection, that collective. And then it'll be more unique per each shevet, each tribe, each family, and then to each household, and then to each name, each person. But don't forget, the way you're going to count them is half coin each, as nondescript, as equal as can be. Because your individuality and your specific person of who you are is only as good and only as strong as it is within, as it services the common good of everybody being a half coin, a part of the whole. And so this takes us to the Rashi at the beginning of the Parsha. Rashi says, Mitoch chibasal nefanav, out of the pleasure, the love, the treasure to Hashem in front of him. He continuously counts them. Counted them when they came out of Mitzrayim, counted them after the devastating golden calf episode, and counts them again now as they're building the Mishkan, or entering the Mishkan, the temple. Why? What does it mean? Chiba lefanav. It's the chiba, the treasure, the pleasure that Hashem has in the people lefanav, in front of him, in the presence of Hashem, in as much as that we are living a life of meaning, a life of connection, not just coming into the office and go ahead, do as you wish. That's meaningless. I don't have a direction. But rather coming in the morning and looking at my task and looking at my to-do list. And that's narrow, right? Because it confines me to a particular thing I need to do. But then it's purposeful and it has a direction and it is connected to the common goal of whatever that structure is. As we understand that in work, and we understand that in an organization, and we understand that in our home life, and we understand that in our relationships. It can't just be for free. It can't just be, just do as you wish. It was Mother's Day Sunday, so what do? I don't know, whatever I wanted. No, it has to have some structure. It has to have some meaning. Today is Yom Yerushalayim, a day commemorating the 54th day of the miracle of Bnei Yisrael being able to come back to our heart, our homeland, our place, our mikdash. May the structure be built soon, but we're back there for the first time. Since the destruction of the temple, we have the ability to come back. Yom Yerushalayim. Yeah, so what am I going to do? I don't know. Right? If there's no structure, it has no meaning. But it's lefanav. I do it in front of Hashem. I'm with an intent. What I do is within the structure of the meaning of my life. Everything we do lefanav. The Gemara tells, the question was asked, I think it was Rish Lakish, I forget now, who asked the question, one verse of the Torah that all of the Torah is connected to it, or really it's a guf HaTorah, in the body of Torah that everything is connected to. And I think it was Rabbi Yochanan, I don't remember right now, said the verse that says, B'chol derachecha de'ehu. In all your paths, know him. Right? So I understand when I come to shul and I'm standing Amida and I'm about to daven to Hashem, I need to know Hashem. I need to have like a mental connection. Okay, I'm about to speak to my Creator who grants me life and wishes something of me. Okay, right. So that's a good thought. B'chol derachecha, in all your paths, in everything I'm doing. Yeah, in everything you're doing. Whatever it is, and that's the body of Torah, whether it is that you're going for a hike, or you're swimming, or you're skiing, or you're working, or you're painting, or you're writing, or you're wearing tefillin, or you're making challah, or you're lighting Shabbos candles, whatever it is, b'chol derachecha, in all your ways, da'ehu, intimately know God. Be in the presence. And then everything we do is lefanav, in front of him. And that's the chiba. That is the preciousness to Hashem. Meaning, then it's meaningful. It's not the sentiment. Right? Hashem is not a sentient being. Right? It's not the sentiment per se, but rather the purpose. Then it's meaningful work. Then it's meaningful doing. because that which I do is for the true ultimate collective, for Am Yisrael, Adas B'nai Yisrael, the congregation of the entirety of B'nai Yisrael. Meaning the entire purpose of why it is that we do what we do and that we are who we are, and that the world exists to bring about this goodness. So that's this count here. Count the collective, the entirety, everybody that is a part of that entirety. But then it breaks it down, ultimately taking it to an individual. But that individual is invaluable in their individuality as it relates to the whole. Not as in their individuality as it relates to their distinctness and separation from the whole. And that's the tafkid. And that's the count. And so when it says this tribe has this amount and this tribe has this amount, and they sit on the east and they sit on the west, and they sit near these, it's defining the structure of the entire organization, the entire meaningfulness of Am Yisrael. So we look at each other and we say, okay, it's just a bunch of individuals. No, it's a bunch of individuals doing the same thing for the same purpose. Now it's interesting. So how many is it? And what does each one do? And where do they each sit? And what jobs do they have in the Mishkan? And who's replacing whom? And what purposes do they have? Now that's really vital information. So we look at this and we don't have a sense of it because we don't have a sense of our collective, because we don't have a sense of who we are as a whole and where we're going as a whole. We have a hard enough time doing that in our miniature communities, in our own places. But in reality, we know. I go visit, Gibraltar. And I walk into a shul and I'm doing the same exact thing with someone who is in the same department as I am. And that's where I can actually see it. That's when I know it. That's when I feel and sense that, oh, it really is me and them in the same direction, in the same place. Or I may be sitting here and I hear that rockets are being shot at my brother and sister, my nieces and nephews, my own children, me, my flesh and blood. And I feel it like it's me. Because I'm an individual. I have my own way. I may not be doing what they do. I may be in a different department. But at the core, my half shekel and their half shekel is exactly the same. And at the core, we are side by side, one, interlocked. And so their pain is my pain. And their joy is my joy. So that's this count. That's the purpose of giving each person their place. The count of the names, the count of each individual, what they bring. But that count is done by an indescript, completely similar, indistinct half shekel coin. The let's see. I thought there were questions. They were just comments that popped up. Okay. All right. so the count goes through all the way to the end of the first chapter. However, it says that the tribe of Levi were not included in that. Now, based on this, you'd have the question: okay, wait. If everybody's got that, why is Shevet Levi not included in the count? After all, they are a part of this collective. So let's turn to verses 49 and on at the end of the first chapter over here. So what was that question? Sorry. Yeah. So is the half shekel related to our inner core connection to Hashem? Yes. That is the baseline. That is the if you would, the source of our oneness in our connection with Hashem. And so each half shekel is that core, that root, and then everything else stems from that. And each individual is an outgrowth from there. I want to move into this idea also, and I realize it's getting late, just to show you that in uniqueness, that more clearly. What were these half shekels used for? They were used for the bases on the wall of the Mishkan. So the Mishkan is made up of a bunch of pillars, and the pillars of the Mishkan were cedar wood, a shittim wood. I think it's acacia, they call it cedar, the shittim wood covered in gold, and it stood on these adanim, these base shoes that would hold up these beams, the pillars, and they were made of the half shekel. Right, so the half shekel is not the adornment of the Mishkan. It's not the structure of the Mishkan itself. It's not the vessels. It's not the menorah. It's not the beauty. You know what it is? It's the foundation stone. It's the base. That in the base, everyone is equal. What grows out of that, what comes forth from that, is each individual. Everybody's got what they contribute. And each pillar is then connected to each other. But it's each individual that stands upon that base. But the base is what holds up the whole structure. That's where the half shekel is. So when we talk about Mispar Shemos, each person has its name, their individual place in the collective. Of course, because everybody brings something else to it. But at its core, at the source of it all, if we would call it the collective soul of Am Yisrael, is one. And so everybody in their half shekel is completely indistinct from another and completely ununique. Yeah. It's not just not unique, like really uniqueless, completely ununique. Whatever makes us unique is stripped to become the indistinct one with everyone else. Not to lose any identity, but that the identity identifies most when it has a purpose that's common. So why the Leviim don't get this? So the verse says in 29, but the tribe of Levi do not tifkod, do not count, designate, and their head shall not be lifted amongst Bnei Yisrael. Rather, they are designated on the Mishkan. Rather, they're designated on the structure itself of the Mishkan, to its vessels, to carry it, to put it up and take it down as you travel. And therefore, Bnei Yisrael dwell around the Mishkan, 3 on each side, and the Leviim are in the center. The Levi now represents not an individual, but that collective itself. So the Levi is not counted by name, by the count of each individual, because they indeed have been dedicated to the source itself, to the core itself, to the base, to the Mishkan, to the center of the tribes. So while each tribe, one's on the east representing what the east represents, and one on the west, and one in the north, and one in the south, not one, three and three and three. Levi represents the center of the core itself. And within the tribe of Levi, you also have representations of the east, west, north, and south for each one. But they dwell in the center of the nation, and they protect that core idea itself, the ideal. The Mishkan representing the appointment of Hashem. So if we see ourselves as living in front of Hashem with a purpose, and the Mishkan representing that meeting point of that purpose, the Levi represents the protection of that meeting point, the protection of the core, as opposed to the individual. Each tribe is an individual. Each individual within a tribe is an individual. But the Levi represents the protection of that core itself. In the second chapter, it goes through the count of each tribe, where they dwelt. East were Yehuda, and together with them were the tribe of Yisachar and the tribe of Zevulun. And then they had flags. These flags and the sides represent an idea within Torah, the ideas of the sides. The north and south represent the north represents the wealth or the table in the Mishkan. The south represents the menorah or wisdom. The east is the entrance, the beginning of the day, and the west is the Holy of Holies, where we're going. The tribes of Yehuda, Yisachar, and Zevulun are the concepts of the strength of where we are going. The beginning of the day, that's the east. It's the start of the direction. We see as Yaakov goes with the 70 people down to Egypt, Yaakov sends Yehuda shalach lefanav, lahoras lefanav Goshna. He sent Yehuda forward ahead to prepare Goshen for the coming of his family. That's the initial start of the direction of where we need to go. Yisachar, Yodel Itim Labina. Yisachar are the teachers of Am Yisrael. Yisachar is the representative of the study of Torah and the teaching of Torah, and Zevulun is his partner. The ability to as we spoke about, whatever you do for that common cause. Yisachar and Zevulun are the classic example of that, where Yisachar is the teacher, and Zevulun, his brother, is the merchant with ships set sail for as a merchant, and Zevulun supporting the teaching of Yisachar. The individual bringing about the collective. The entrance, the start of Am Yisrael, the east, which is the morning going up, the beginning of the day, is where you have Yehuda, the king, the leadership. The leadership sees to it that there are the teachers and there are those that support the community to be able to all work to the common goal. There are no more distinct directions, perhaps, than the teacher, the studying Torah and teaching the people, and the one traveling, the traveling merchant with ships, perhaps the least able to be a part of community, but utilizing that strength to give back and build a community. That's the unison of the eastern side of the tribes, the start of the day, the opening of where it comes from. We have to see this as a microcosm of this idea of where the uniqueness of each tribe and the uniqueness of each person is valuable in its collectiveness, in its uniqueness and individual space where it comes together with the other to make a whole. And that's the starting point for Am Yisrael. And without that, we don't have a collective. We don't have an opening. On the southern side, representing the wisdom and Torah, which is the menorah on that side. Jacob, you had a question? Oh, I thought you. I thought you did. Okay, so it is the tribe of Reuven, and next to him Shimon and Gad. Reuven and Shimon, when Yaakov gave them their designations, it came along with the failings of their actions. And this is the importance of both Reuven and Shimon, the strength of character in good ideas, in the mind. Reuven, it says that the Torah testifies that he put Yosef in the pit to try and save him from the brothers. Right? He wanted to do something good, but then he didn't push back hard enough, and therefore didn't ultimately that didn't happen. He didn't save it. But the Torah testifies he did so with the intent of saving the brothers who at first wanted Yosef from the brothers who at first wanted to kill him. And the Midrash, we talked about it back then, says that if Reuven had known that it would be inscribed in the Torah forever that he wanted to save his brother, he would have picked his brother up on his shoulders and carried him home to his father dancing. Right? And we talked then about how we sometimes short sell ourselves, don't really value what we bring enough, and so we don't step up, and we don't do, and we don't take charge in what it is that we can bring. We hesitate. Well, who am I? What am I? What am I worth? But we can and ought to do more and step up and do it full and wholeheartedly. But Reuven and Shimon also, these are good ideas that just when they were implemented, didn't implement right. God is Hu Yugedenu Akev, that Yaakov says there. He can see the result, the heel, what comes after that which is done. And collectively, they represent wisdom. The wisdom is great, but it needs to be implemented in a way that is the strength of what it brings. So this is the southern side of sitting around the tribe, the Mishkan. Then it says the center is the Leviim, and the west are the tribes of Ephraim, Manasseh, and Benjamin. The tribes of Rachel's children, Ephraim, Manasseh, and Benjamin. They represent the future. They represent the west, the ultimate place. Binyamin, the temple, the Mishkan in his Temple Mount is in his on his land, in his place in Yerushalayim, and it's representative of the day being complete. Binyamin and that's Rachel and her children, the Yosef being the Mashbir, the Redeemer, and the one who supports the community, the family, and the entirety of Am Yisrael are called by Ephraim. Aben Yakir li Ephraim. Ephraim is the entirety of Am Yisrael. Rachel is the mother of all of Am Yisrael, even though she has these two tribes. She is Rachel Mevaka al Banea. She cries for her children. The Rachel, the quintessential mother, and her children, the ultimate place that you come to. So as Yehuda is the opening, the beginning of how we learn to be who we are. Yosef and Binyamin, or Menashe, Ephraim, and Binyamin are on the western side, which on the Temple Mount is the Holy of Holies, right? Is on the west side, and this is the ultimate place where we come to. And on the north, representing where the table, the shulchan, is in the Mishkan, which is representing the sustenance and the maintenance of life for Am Yisrael, are the tribes of Dan and Naphtali and Asher. Asher Shemena Lachma. Asher is the fats of the land and the sustenance. Dan is the justice, law, which is a part of the maintenance of sustaining life, and Naphtali, the swiftness of implementing life. And these are the representations of Bnei Yisrael around the tribes, around the temple. The understanding that each one brings a unique direction, a unique contribution. And so they have their place and they have their name and they each have a count. And within each tribe, that count is there as well. But we have to ultimately know it surrounds the single entity of the Mishkan, the single entity of Lifnei Hashem, that we stand before Hashem, and that everything we do, whether it seems mundane to us or it seems spiritual to us, and everybody's going to seem something spiritual. I know, Jacob, for you, taking a walk is most spiritual, and for somebody else, it'll be skiing right now. Nobody sees skiing as spiritual, but yeah. But the idea is that we all have a place of where we take this. What does this mean for us? But whether it's something that we see as spiritual or something that we see as mundane, it all sits around the temple. It all sits around that core Lifnei Hashem, before Hashem. And that regardless of what particular road uniqueness we have, because it's Lifnei Hashem, it is connected to that core. And in that way, it is indistinguishable from the next person also doing their part, Lifnei Hashem.